How's it going, everyone? My name is fallinghurts, and if you've seen the title of this video, you can see that we're talking about a new horror game. This one is called Limerick, Cadence Mansion. It is touted as a detail-rich, first-person action horror adventure with deep lore, intricate puzzles, satisfying combat, and a happy little marionette who really wants to say hello. Which, of course, we can assume that that little guy is the guy who's on the art for the game. Now, if you're new to the channel, or if you're returning, you know that I love horror games, survival games, and usually survival horror games. And of course, Limerick does definitely fit into that fold. Now, in the background of this video, I'll have both the trailer, the new gameplay trailer that just came out, as well as some of my footage from the early demo that is out for the game. However, there will be a new gameplay demo of the game coming soon, and if there is substantial new information about the game, I will consider making a new video for that. But as for right now, let's get into everything that we actually know about the game from the game's Steam page. Limerick is a story-rich, atmospheric thriller adventure set on the foreboding Night Sonnet Isle. You awake in an empty cell with your past and purpose shrouded in mystery. Responsive puzzles, otherworldly monsters, and enigmatic clues will challenge you each step of the way as you explore, experience, and engage with the riddles of Cadence Mansion. And I have to say off the bat, as someone who never hated English class as much as my peers at the time, I really enjoy the emphasis on poetry and different things like that, especially when it seems to come to the puzzles. In the trailer, we actually see where you have to line up certain phrases, and while I don't exactly know how the puzzles like this will translate to being fun, it definitely seems like something that can be both intelligent but also entertaining at the same time, as the emphasis on puzzles really seems intriguing. Accompanying this, we do get a little quote where a new ballad sounds across Night Sonnet Isle. The seas will swallow light with darkness, the boulders will shatter and shake, the poets will be silenced, and the resplendent will rise. Now, we're not exactly sure what this means, of course, but I'm super interested in how this game turns out because, honestly, it just seems like a really interesting premise for a horror game, or at the very least, a really cool world to potentially read about or explore. But in doing so, as I said, we're going to be solving some puzzles. With a rich buffet of responsive, interactive, and satisfying puzzles, players can choose to experiment however they want to find solutions on their own, or to explore the intricately detailed world of Cadence Mansion to find solutions littered throughout the notes, mechanisms, and images left behind by the missing denizens of these lifeless halls. On the developer's Twitter, they have actually shown off a few of these characters, which I'll have kind of little recordings playing in the background here. But I'm really interested to learn about these characters specifically, and I'm curious to see just how we'll be interacting with their stories. Next up, there is combat in the game to some degree, which is interesting. At the very least, I know there are 2 guns in the game from the trailer, but from tense enemy encounters in tight spaces to epic, out-of-this-world boss battles, which do look like they could be really interesting, by the way, Limerick will challenge and amaze with a cast of terrifying creatures. Carefully themed and wildly ethereal, the monsters of Night Sonnet Isle tell a story all of their own, which, if you've paid attention to my Outlast reviews, you'll know that I think the enemies need to be interesting in and of themselves. So it's really interesting to think that each of these could be unique. While I do think, looking at the trailer, of course, these enemies do seem a little on the basic side as far as their movement goes. Each of them comes off as super unique, and I really enjoy that. And visually, I really enjoy looking at them. So I'm willing to give every bit of this game a shot, even if I'm really curious to how this translates overall. But speaking of movement as far as the player goes, you are also going to need to explore. You're going to enter the painstakingly handcrafted world of the Splendor Point Poets Corporation and the Resplendent. Filled with breathtaking environments, set dressing, and visual stories, players can lose themselves for hours in the luxurious and terrifying atmosphere of the mansion atop the mountain. And I have to say, visually, I think this game does look pretty good. It's definitely, of course, not your crazy, huge AAA game, but I think the way that it handles both lighting and some of the way that as you're moving through environments, it just feels cohesive, I guess is the best way of putting it. Like the part in the trailer where you're in a chase sequence and it just all flows so well together in a really well-crafted hallway. I'm really interested to see how the game leverages this. And the exploration is definitely something that I'll be there for on day one. And with that being said, we go right into the next section where we need to survive. No horror experience would be complete without a memorable antagonist to chase you through the halls. The eponymous Limerick is not just a monster. He is the grand mystery of Splinter Point. What are his motivations? What incredible secrets and powers does he hold? And when the time comes to meet him, will you be ready? Once again for me, this calls back to horror in the best ways possible. The Xenomorph in Alien Isolation, Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 Remake. I love it when an ever-present threat is chasing you. Now, it doesn't necessarily say that per se, but I would love the idea of these large areas with puzzles to explore and enemies to dodge or combat in some meaningful way. Challenges the player in such a way that it's the scariest part of the game is making the decision whether or not you need to run, hide, or fight. And that to me is the horror of a lot of these games, especially games where you have weapons. And finally, we have a bullet point kind of highlighting each of the key things that we've already went over. The fully realized, detail-rich world, responsive puzzles and gameplay, unique thrills with a memorable antagonist, epic boss fights, and an original soundtrack filled with orchestral motifs and themes. And while each of these need to be seen out to their fullest, I'm really excited to play this game as it seems like it's going to scratch an itch that in the indie scene has been scratched by many in different ways. But I think the unique twist to the premise of this game, the focus on the poetry and literature aspects, are really going to carry this to a different experience. If you're interested in this game in any way, maybe you're not ready right away, I definitely plan to fully review this game whenever it is out. And this is coming, of course, from Genito Studios, developed and published, and it's going to be coming out sometime this year in 2023. The new demo is going to be out in July on Steam, so look forward to that soon, and I'll see you whenever the game releases. Thank you so much for watching this video, and once again, my name is Falling Hurts. Goodbye.